1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Seeing that it is indeed 5 o'clock, we're a minute late. Sorry, folks. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order with a reminder to please silence your electronic devices. And also, today's meeting will be video and audio recorded for social media, as well as cable channels. Ms. Williams, can I get a roll call vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Paul Alexander.
Here.
Ms. Shantae Jones.
Here.
Ms. Rachel Kirkland.
Here. All right. Mr. Alexander, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No.
Seeing that there are none, can I get a motion on approval of the agenda?
Move to approve agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda, please?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See no opposed? That carries. All right. Moving on to Superintendent's Spotlight.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Tonight we spotlight our school counselors. And if you look up there, you can see them on the screen. Hello, school counselors. Yay. We can see you. National School Counseling Week 2022 is February 7th to 11th and aims to focus public attention on the unique contribution of school counselors within U.S. school systems. National School Counseling Week, supported by ASCA, highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for their career. School counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents, as well as how these traits relate to career awareness and development. School counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. Comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all of our students to achieve success in school. And now, here is a short tribute to our own school counselors here in Manassas Park. I'll call out the names from each school, and if you are here when I call your name, just give us a little wave. We can see you on the screen. For Cougar Elementary School, we have Bree Griffin, Ricky Costin, and Dylan Barton. I think I saw Bree and Dylan there. Hi, guys. From MPES, we have Mackenzie Rupert, Olivia McKelly, and Kelly Hogan. And I see Mackenzie there. Hi, Mackenzie. Hi, Kelly. From Manassas Park Middle School, we have Aubrey Roach, Shannon Yoon, and Anna Osborne. I know I see Aubrey there and Anna. Hi, guys. And from the high school, from Manassas Park High School, we have Cindy Watson, Jasmine Quinones, Bradley Gillespie, and Jamie Johnson. And I know I see Bradley, I see Cindy there. Thank you so much for joining us. I know I speak for everyone when we thank you guys for the tireless work that you guys do with our kids every day in the school, and we're thrilled to spotlight you this week for National School Counselors Week. Thank you.
Very good. Any comments from the board?
I actually would just say a huge thank you. I've actually had to reach out to the counselors several times that with COVID and my kids and the stress of everything that they've been through. You guys have been a huge help, given my coping mechanisms, strategies on how to deal with stress. It's just been fantastic, and I sincerely appreciate it.
The load has been tremendous this year. You know, as a fellow educator, I know how hard it's been to come back for our kids and how much work has gone into making it a good year, and you are a crucial piece of those kids finding their way back to school and back to normalcy. And I cannot thank you enough for the work that you do. K through 12, you guys have always been amazing for the parents of this community, for the teachers of this community, and most of all for the kids in this community. So thank you so much. Happy Counselors Week. Very good. All right. We are going to move on. You're more than welcome to stay and listen to the budget, but I would understand if you go. All right. Moving on, and we do have one person on their way, but she can probably join us and then watch the notes later. New business, the fiscal year 23 superintendent's proposed budget. Dr. Saunders and Dave Lyons.
I don't know if Pates and I are both trying to. Okay, I'm going to stop so Pates can go ahead and pull that. I think we're both trying to do it at the same time. Great, thank you so much. So good evening, Chair Kirkland, Vice Chair Alexander, and board members, Ms. Jones, Ms. Fleming, and Mr. Vargas. Tonight I am presenting the FY23 Superintendent's proposed budget for the board and our school community. As your new superintendent, this process has been one of learning and growth. The budget development process began at the school and department level in October. It moved to the executive level in December, and finally to my desk, the superintendent level, in December and January. Each level was full of productive discussions, data review, and decision making. I'm proud of our work, the thoughtful conversations, and the laser focus on creating the best opportunities for student learning. Let's see here. Oh. The budget proposed this evening addresses the Code of Virginia, which requires the superintendent to prepare a needs-based and balanced budget for the school board on or before the first day of April on each year. As I've shared in every presentation with you so far, the Manassas Park City Schools strategic plan must be kept at the forefront of all of our work. Our strategic plan serves as a guiding light and path to keep working towards our goals of academic achievement, cultivating committed professionals, and supporting student safety and success. This proposed budget aligns to our goals and moves us further towards accomplishing the elements of this strategic plan. I've also talked a lot with you about the superintendent's focus areas this year. Many of my presentations have talked about these specific things. Most importantly, I started off talking about opening school. Teaching and learning, and assessing and addressing unfinished learning. This was our first opportunity to be back in person this school year, full time. And while it has been met with challenges, I think we've done some amazing work. I think we all understand that our work has only just begun. I think we actually thought that everything was going to go back to normal relatively quickly, and as we sit here today in February, we can see that that did not necessarily happen. So we still have quite a bit of work to do around teaching and learning, assessing and addressing unfinished learning. And those budget priorities will be not only in this year's budget, but in budgets to come. I talked a lot about listening, learning, and building relationships. And, developing a budget that starts at the teacher and school and staff level and building that up through the executive team and having those conversations. I'm truly lucky that I've been able to build those relationships and hear from staff and hear from our community members and hear from our governing body and from the partnerships that we've created, that I've created there. So that has also been part of the focus in this budget. I've talked a lot about the compensation structure, presenting to the board and the governing body a phased plan for revising the compensation structure to make sure that we compensate all of our employees well, and that we are competitive in the market. And you will see that reflected in this budget. And the organizational structure I've talked about, making sure that we have our resources aligned to providing the best supports and services we can for students and schools. Balanced budgets require development of priorities to guide decision-making. I specifically identified 4 budget priorities for the FY23 Superintendent's proposed budget: student achievement, employee recruitment and retention, capital improvement, and sustainability and future planning. As we provide the details of this budget, you will see how each of these are represented. I want to talk a little bit about the phased compensation planning that I shared with you earlier in the school year. This should look familiar, as I shared with the school board and staffs and the governing body, that to create an opportunity for compensation that we are able to be in the market with those surrounding us, that we can compete in the market, we have to really look at it over multiple years. This particular year, in this budget, you will see the development of the FY23 budget with a new teacher salary scale and staff plotted on that scale. You will see that reflected in the budget presented this evening. You will also see some elements of Phase 2, which really get to that idea of establishing a policy and procedure for classification and reclassification, and looking at those pieces of our services, like rewriting job descriptions, and really finding opportunities to improve in that area. We know that the large change to a teacher scale, a typical traditional teacher scale from where we currently are, people will have questions and conversations about that, and we know that there will need to be revisions and looking at those policies and procedures in the year to come. So before I turn this over to Mr. Lyon to share the specifics of the budget, I can't speak highly enough of the time, the energy, and the thought that went into the budget process. From our school level staff to our principals, to the executive team members you see here today, to the conversations were lively, they were deep, and they were focused on the right things, supporting students and learning. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Dave Lyon, the Executive Director of Finance, to continue with their presentations and some details, and I'll be back to you at the end. Dave?
Thank you, Dr. Saunders. Good evening, members of the board, Chairman Kirkman. This evening, I'm here to speak to how we developed the budget. Phase 1, the superintendent's proposed budget was developed using a zero-based approach within 5 phases. It began in mid-October with Phase 1. Budget holders, their supervisors, principals, department heads worked to identify student needs and determine which strategies and resources, services, and supports were needed to address student needs. They entered these items into their zero-based budget requests. Beginning in December, principals and department heads presented their Phase 1 budget request to the division-level leadership team. Leadership analyzed the request and worked to ensure requests were aligned with the division's strategic goals, met student needs, while maintaining a balanced budget. Personnel requests were considered as well. Positions that were currently open and unfilled were analyzed. Student enrollment was utilized to determine opportunities to repurpose vacant FTEs to meet these personnel requests. In mid-December, Phase 2 moved into Phase 3. In this phase, the superintendent reviewed Phase 2 decisions regarding requests in non-personnel and personnel items. Dr. Saunders worked with the executive cabinet to finalize which unfulfilled FTEs would be utilized for repurposing to meet the personnel requests in Phase 1. This evening is the beginning of Phase 4, the school board's review and finalizing the FY23 proposed budget. Once the school board finishes its work on the budget moves into Phase 5 and will be presented to the Manassas Park governing body. Wrong way. On this slide is the enrollment projection. Enrollment over the past few years has been declining. As we look forward into future years, enrollment looks to flatten, but may slightly decline in the out years. State code requires that the per pupil funding totals be presented at each budget proposal. On this slide, you will see how much money per pupil is expended on our students. You will notice an increase in per pupil spending the last few years. The situation during the pandemic certainly has influenced these totals. Please note that FY22 and FY23 are projections. They are not final counts or final calculations. The final calculations will be computed once we finalize the annual school report at the end of this year. You will notice that the ADM, which is the average daily membership, has been slightly declining over the years, but the per pupil amounts have increased. That because the funding is still at the levels it is, naturally the funding per pupil will go up as the ADM goes down. As Dr. Saunders said earlier, the teacher pay scale was a high budget priority this year. MPS had a compensation study done last year, and the findings were shared earlier this school year with the school board. I'll summarize their findings by saying they recommended analyzing competing school division salary scales and developing a traditional scale for our teachers. We analyzed Manassas City and Prince William County's 21-22 pay scales and their total salaries of our current teachers. A traditional scale was established with 30 steps and columns for the advanced degrees. We assumed our competitors would increase the salaries on their scales by 5%. We then used that as our beginning salary for a teacher with a bachelor's degree. From there, we built a traditional scale to accommodate the 30 steps in a column for bachelor's plus 15, master's plus 15, and a doctorate. The additional amounts for those advanced degrees, you can see on the slide there, bachelor plus 15 is $1,338. Master's degree is $6,000. Master's degree plus 15 is $8,000. And a doctorate is $10,000. These scales promote retention and longevity with our teachers. This here is a screenshot of the 200-day teacher contract, which is the prevailing contract we have for most of our teachers. You'll see down the side are the steps, 0 to 1, and then the rest of them are down the side with the degrees to the right. Placement on this scale occurs as follows. You would take the total years of experience minus 1, and that would be the step you start at. And then find the correlating column for your degree level, and that will be your salary. So in this example, I give you a teacher with a BA and 10 years experience. The step would be 9. And with the BA, the starting salary for that step 9 is $63,139. "33 teachers' current school year 21-22 salaries were greater than the salary they will receive on the new scale. So in essence, their salary is above scale. Naturally, we do not want anyone to lose money. So in the proposed budget, we consider these teachers in a no-loss position, and we propose to maintain these 33 teachers' salaries, 21-22 salaries going forward, until their placement on the new scale yields a salary equal to or greater than their current 21-22 salary. About a third of them will begin to benefit from the new scale in 23-24, and about another third in 24-25. On this slide, I provide an example of a teacher in a no-loss situation. Let's say a teacher with a BA at the beginning of the school year had 1 year of experience. So currently the teacher's working to complete her second year of experience and earning $53,440. Starting next year, her placement on the scale would be 2 years minus 1, which is step 1, and a starting salary of $52,135. Obviously, that's less than what she's making currently. This teacher's salary of $53,440 would be maintained next year and in the out years. But in 23-24, this teacher, according to the new scale salary would be more than her current salary, so then she'd be placed on the new scale starting at 23-24. This is a 205-day contract. The next 3 slides are 205, excuse me, 210 and 220 pay scales. All these pay scales are developed using the daily rate from the 200-day contract pay scale, just with added days onto it. Using the new scale, the average teacher salary increase is 8%. To be fully transparent, teachers with the least years of experience get the least amount of increase. Teachers with more years of experience receive a greater increase this first year of implementing the new pay scale. As I mentioned earlier, we took the Manassas City and the Prince William County 21-22 pay scales and added 5% to identify a starting point for our scale. In this table, I stated the BA salary for the years of experience in comparison to the 5% assumed salary increase in the other 2 systems' pay scales. So as you can see, years 0 through 10, we maintain our competitive edge. Years 0 through 15, we keep our competitive edge. After 15, we still keep a competitive edge, but there is a minimal difference between us and Manassas City and Prince William. All other personnel remain on unified scale. In this proposed budget, we apply a 5% increase to unified scale across the board. All rates receive a 5% increase. With exception to the pay rates for executive directors, who will receive a 3% increase. I forgot to mention, on the teacher scale, we will have the school counselors and the librarians on the teacher scale, in addition to the teachers. But everyone else will remain on the unified scale, such as specialists and the admin and support staff. To summarize the last few pay scale slides, the FY23 budget includes a traditional pay scale for teachers that is competitive and supports longevity with our teachers. Remaining personnel will stay on the unified scale and receive a 5% increase on the salary, excluding executive directors. These adjustments result in a $2.3 million increase in salary, a $980,000 increase in benefits. Here on this slide, we show you, as I mentioned earlier, we analyze enrollment and unfilled positions this year. I'm pleased to say this proposed budget does not add FTEs to the current budget. The proposed budget has the same number of FTEs as proposed in the FY22 budget. We maintain a K3 class size of 22-1, a grade 4 class size of 24-1, and a grade 5 class size 23-1, and the middle school and high school remains unchanged. Contract lengths. Some staffing adjustments we have in this proposed budget. High school counselor contracts moved to 11 months. Parent liaisons moved to 11 months. And the high school registrar moves to 12 months. Other adjustments, as I mentioned, we repurposed 8 vacant FTEs that have gone unfilled this year. We identified 3 additional ESOL teachers, 2 for Cougar and 1 for MPE, to meet the SOQ requirement for 50-to-1 ratios for students who are English learners. 2 testing intervention specialists to serve Manassas Park Elementary, the middle school, and the high school. Those positions are to support the state assessment program with all the additional SOL requirements that they have to implement now year-round from grade levels 3 to 12. 1 PE teacher at Manassas Park, in addition to the one they already have, to ensure compliance with the PE minutes in the SOQ. an on-time graduation / Cougars Connect coordinator to work to improve the graduation rate and decrease the dropout rate to meet the requirements for accreditation of the high school. And then we have the supervisor of transition and special ed services. This is a position Ms. Kernan occupied last year and is vacant now, and we have repurposed it to include transition services in addition to special ed services. On the next 4 slides, I will share with you how our revenue and expenditures break out proportionally. Here you see how our revenue sources break out. We classify our revenues into 4 different sources: Commonwealth of the state, city, federal, and local. We receive 65% of our revenue from the state, 24% from the Manassas Park governing body, 10% from federal funds, and 1% from other local sources. Here you see the funds of those revenues on the slide. We have 5 funds: the general fund, which accounts for 88% of our expenditures; federal grants, the federal fund, which accounts for 6% of our budget; school nutrition, which runs as an enterprise operation, is fully self-sufficient, accounts for 5% of our budget; capital projects, capital fund, this fund provides for purchase of additional and replacement capital items, which accounts for 1% of our budget; and the medical trust, which is the fund that pays all medical premium expenditures on the behalf of retirees. The sources of revenue for that are the retiree health care credit payments from the state on the behalf of the retirees from VRS, and then the retiree pays the balance. That's 0.29% of our budget. Breaking those expenditures down one more level to a function, you see our categories here. Instruction makes up 72% of the expenditures, followed by excuse me, the facilities at 1%, school nutrition at 5%, maintenance, and as you can see, they go around the wheel there, 7%, transportation at 4%, attendance at 1%, administration at 5%, technology at 3%, and instructional technology at 2%. Some may ask, why is technology and instructional technology broken out? Or why is instructional technology separate by itself? Looking back at how the information has been presented in the past, I just followed the same reporting. But these are all state function codes. Technology is more the infrastructure. Instructional technology is the items in the classroom being used for instruction, which you could say could be subsumed under instruction or technology. Looking at those, at the lowest level of our classification structure is object levels. So when looking at this, salaries make up, in this proposed budget, 58% of the cost. Benefits, 21%, so you're looking at about 79%. Capital projects at about 2%. Tuition payments, which is to the former special ed regional program. We do have some students who go out who are hard to serve out to the county for some of their programs. That's what that $93,000 is budgeted for. Materials and supplies at 9%. Other charges at 3%, and contract services at 7%. Going back to our funds, if you recall, in the next 7 slides, I will provide you a summary of revenue expenses by the 5 different funds that I've previously mentioned. We begin with the general fund. Remember, this fund makes up 80% of all of our expenditures. Beginning with the revenue, the state provided revenue projections on December 17th of 2021. Their projections showed a $4.4 million increase in revenue for Manassas Park. Manassas Park governing body included in their FY22 budget projections for supporting Manassas Park schools, and they're projecting a $13 million transfer, which is $192,000 more than what they provided us in FY22. This brings the projected revenue amount to $47.7 million. Looking at the expenditures, we have a total projected expenditure summing up to about $47.2 million. You'll notice the variance amounts showing the greatest increase over FY22 approved budget to be in salaries and benefits, which is due to the compensation changes we have made in our proposed FY23 budget. The next item to increase a noticeable amount is contract services. We have not been able to fill all of the special ed positions, which makes us more reliant on contract services for speech, and PT, and special ed instructional services. This results in in additional money for contract services up to $486,000. You also notice an increase in materials and supplies. In FY23, we have budgeted for an additional amount of $310,000 for textbooks and $400,000 in technology. Mr. McCormick is planning to replace all of the switches at the schools. We have a large number of Chromebooks that are expiring he has to replace, so the $400,000 for technology is in that area. As you may notice, this fund is balanced. The expenditures are less than the revenue, showing a positive balance at the end of $514,000. This money has not been obligated to any expenditures, and I ask that you table this amount, and we will revisit this balance in a few slides. The federal fund, the summary of all of our federal revenue and expenditures, it is balanced and expenditures equal revenue. You will notice a decrease in materials and supply. This is due to the decrease in use of ESSER money in FY23. The school nutrition fund, as I had previously mentioned, is self-sufficient. You'll notice that the local revenue is much less than previous years. This is due to the school meals now being free to our students, and we are not charging for them. The projected expenditures are slightly less than the projected revenue, and we anticipate adding $72,000 to the food service fund balance at the end of FY23. We are reinstating the use of the capital improvement fund. The practice over the past couple of years was to subsume the CIP expenditures in the general fund. We are returning to stating the CIP expenditures in its separate fund to improve forecasting for the CIP plan. In FY23, the state is providing Manassas Park with $2.3 million for CIP projects. Unspent funds will be carried forward to the FY24 year as required by VDOE. The funds have been allocated to support the current 5-year CIP plan. You may notice in a moment, or in the slide there, FY27 does not have any expenditures because FY27 is still in the planning stages. But I wanted to plan for at least the typical amount for a fiscal year, which you'll see is $380,000. I just carried it forward. Here is the actual CIP fund, where you see the revenue up top. That $763,800 is part of the $2.3 million that we will receive this year for capital projects. Medical Trust Fund, as I mentioned earlier, this is for our retirees. And we anticipate a slight bounce there to $269 at the end. So looking at all funds aggregated together to calculate total revenue, expenditures, and fund balances. On the far right is the variance showing the difference between the proposed FY23 budget amounts and the FY22 approved budget amounts. Total revenue is about $54.4 million. Expenditures around $53.8, leaving a positive balance of $588,000. Remember that $514 of that $588 is from the general fund, which we'll discuss in a couple slides. Dr. Saunders, in addition to the compensation priority, was also stressed a 5-year forecast, so we can plan ahead and look ahead how we can support any type of compensation changes in the out years. Here, I have forecasted revenue expenditures through FY27. This forecast model is built on the following assumptions. Employees on the unified scale receive a 2% increase each year. Teachers receive a step each year. In FY25 and FY27, a 2% increase is applied to the teacher scale in addition to the teachers receiving a step. Non-personnel costs remain flat across all 5 years. And state funding for FY23 and 24 reflect BDOE projections that I received in December. FY25 and FY26 projections are based on a 2% increase from the current FY23-24 biennium budget projection. In FY27, the projected amount is decreased by 1.75% due to possible local composite index revision due to the economic development project here in the park. The 5 funds are listed down the left-hand side, and each fund's expenditures are broken out over each future fiscal year. The variance line you see at the bottom of each fund states the difference between the projected revenue and expenditures. In FY23, you will notice the $514,000 positive balance again, but in the future fiscal years, the variance falls behind the projected revenue. Now, I'll revisit the positive balance of $514,000 from FY23. I asked the school board to consider establishing a state funding stabilization fund within the governing body's budget. The reason is to prepare supporting the support staff pay scale in FY24, and also to begin preparing for the local composite index in the out years in FY27. Excuse me. The second reason is to begin preparing for the LCI to change and state requiring more local dollars to support public education as a result of the economic development of Manassas Park. At this point, one more point I'd like to make is that not only the positive balance of the proposed budget be allocated to that fund, but also any unexpended funds at the end of the year go into that reserve fund with the governing body's budget. With that, I turn it back over to Dr. Saunders.
So thank you, Mr. Lyon, for the detailed presentation. In closing, I want to reflect back to you the budget priorities I spoke about at the very beginning. First and foremost, everything that we do must be connected to students and their academic achievement. This budget provides resources for literacy, career and technical education, STEM education, while supporting all students from our very youngest pre-K students to our high school seniors. It provides staffing and school level supports to keep everyone focused on growth and learning of our students, specifically as we continue to navigate a return to a new normal. This budget focuses on recruitment and retention of our staff. Teachers matter. Teachers matter to student achievement, and having the best, brightest, well-compensated teachers makes a difference. The proposed budget also, the proposed teacher pay scale values all teachers. This budget provides for a 5% raise for the unified scale support staff. We know that they are more than necessary to make the day happen. They are the first people to smile and greet our students, and they're oftentimes the voice and the ear when they're needed. The capital improvement priorities create educational environments for learning and are supported by the additional proposed state revenue. And finally, my specific priority of sustainability for future planning. As you saw, we have developed a 5-year forecast model that provides transparency and thoughtful assumptions. Finally, the recommendation of the development of the State Funding Equalization Fund to place the unobligated balance in the proposed budget with the governing body allows us to continue our collaboration and our work with the governing body in the future. So our next steps today is the superintendent's proposed budget presentation. February 28th, we will have the FY23 budget public hearing and update the school board on any changes to state funding and impact on the proposed budget. March 7th will be the school board budget work session, where I look forward to continuing our conversation that is started this evening and answering questions and providing details to the board members. On March 21st, the school board is slated to adopt the budget. March 29th, the school board will school board FY23 budget presentation with the governing body. And with that, that concludes the FY23 superintendent's proposed budget. I thank you all for your time and your attention. I thank my staff and those out in the audience listening. I will continue to collaborate and talk with staff and the community as we go through this process, and I'm really honored to be able to present this budget focused on our students and our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well done. So next steps for the board, I would encourage, I know some of us took some notes and listened intently. We have the benefit of having this recorded, so I would encourage you to listen to it again and formulate your questions, and we're going to send them to Dr. Saunders so she and her staff can take the time to answer them, and then we will continue our conversations over the next 2 board meetings on the budget. All right. Thank you very much to everyone for your hard work in putting this all together. It's deeply appreciated. All right. Moving on to upcoming meetings. Next regular school board meeting, which is also the public hearing on the fiscal year 23 superintendent's proposed budget. Monday, February 28th, here in the school board meeting room at 6:59 p.m. Do we have any board member comments? Seeing that there are none, I will go ahead and call us adjourned.